All right, folks, now what we're going to do is we are going to shift gears and move over to the firm side of microeconomics. Now, when I say the firm side of microeconomics, I don't mean the hard side or the difficult side. I mean firms or businesses and what it is that they are trying to do as they make economic decisions. And the primary goal of business is to maximize their profit. Individuals, they want to get the most utility that they can get. Firms or businesses, they want to get the most profit that they can get. And what we're going to do in today's lesson is we are going to look at a numerical example of how firms maximize their profit, the decisions that they make. Now, of all the decisions that businesses can make and of all of the economic variables that they face, there are two that are within their control. And the two decisions that businesses have to focus on making are: what quantity should we produce and what price should we charge when we produce that quantity. When we sell that output, how much should we sell it for? Many other decisions that are made by firms are only in response to the fact that they face certain costs. Oftentimes, they don't have a lot of control over their costs. But when it comes to deciding how much should they make and what price should they charge, that is completely 100% up to the business itself. And so this whole idea of profit maximization is going to surround the idea. Ultimately, we're trying to come down to two very important decisions for the business. What quantity should the business produce and what price should the business charge? Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over and I'm going to show you how to set up a table with the 12 variables, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start talking about the profit equation. Okay, what you can see here is it's a table with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 variables. Okay, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows, and you can see that there are selected values for all of these different variables. We will explain each one of these variables in the next few lessons, over the next few lessons. What I need you to do right now is in your notes, I need you to duplicate what you see here. So what I would do is I would go ahead and pause the video and create a table. Now you may want to get a piece of paper and turn it sideways, you know, in the landscape format so that you can fit 12 columns sideways and the headings plus 9 more rows. Okay, so why don't you pause this video and then copy this down into your notes. All right, so central to the whole idea of understanding how to calculate profit, we need to know the very basic, the profit equation. This is basically the granddaddy of them all equations in the beginning of microeconomics. But before I can give you the equation, I need to define 4 concepts for you: profit, loss, total revenue, and total cost. Now, we have seen these 3 terms previously when we talked about benefits and costs. We briefly mentioned them, but now we're going to define them. Okay? Okay, what is profit? Profit is the monetary benefit remaining after all costs are deducted from all revenues. Now, profit is the income of the owners of a firm. Now, sometimes the costs of doing business are greater than the revenues from doing business, and then the profit number actually winds up being a negative number. When profit is negative, we don't call it profit, we call it a loss. So a loss is negative profit experienced when total cost exceeds total revenue. All right, well then what are total cost and total revenue? Okay, well total revenue is all monetary income received by a firm as a result of selling output it has produced. So, a company produces a whole bunch of shirts, and then they sell the shirts. So they produce the shirts, they sell the shirts. When they sell the shirts, people give them money for the shirts. All of that money that the company gets, that is their total revenue. Okay? All right, total cost. Total cost is all monetary costs incurred by a firm in the process of producing and selling output. Okay, so in order to make all the shirts and sell all those shirts, the firm had to hire people. They had to buy material, right? They had to buy thread. They had to pay people to cut the material and sew the thread into shirts, right? They had to make contact with buyers. Maybe they had to do some advertising, or they had to visit a store or visit a company that was going to buy a lot of their shirts. Every single cent, all of the money that is paid out by the company in the process of selling the shirts that they produce and producing the shirts themselves, that is the total cost, okay? And now that we have definitions for all these words, now we can look at the equation. All right, now we're going to actually calculate a few examples of profit, so you may want to have a calculator handy, okay? The profit equation is very simple. All of the profit that is earned by a firm, profit is equal to the total revenue earned by the firm minus the total cost incurred by the firm, okay? And so, very simply, what if I told you that a firm earned total revenue of $75,000 and they incurred costs, total costs, of $63,000, okay? Well, their profit then would be equal to 75,000 minus 63,000. Probably don't even need a calculator for that. So this company earned profit 75,000 minus 63,000, that's $12,000. So this company earned $12,000. All right, if you can do that, you are off to a very good start. Now we're going to make it a little more interesting. What if I were to tell you instead, what if I gave you the profit, if I told you that a company earned $8,000 in profit and they incurred total costs of $119,000. And now what I want to know is, well, what is the total revenue of the firm? Well, now we're just going to use algebra because it's an equation. We're going to put 8,000 in for profit. 8,000 equals total revenue, TR, minus total cost, 119,000. And now we're just going to do some algebra. We're going to solve for total revenue. Here we have minus 119,000, so we're going to add 119,000 to both sides. That's going to cancel over here, bring down the equal sign, so total revenue is equal to 8,000 plus 119,000, and that is going to be $127,000. Okay, and so total revenue would be $127,000, and you can check your answer by doing total revenue minus total cost. 127,000 minus 119,000 is 8,000. Okay, and so what we could say, if we wanted to, is we could also say that total revenue, see what we did here was we add total revenue is equal to profit plus total cost. So if you wanted to make a note, you could say that total revenue has its own formula, which is profit plus total cost. Okay? All right, well, now let's say I gave you total revenue and I gave you profit and I wanted you to find out the total cost. What if I told you that profit is 23,000? I'm just going to ignore the dollar signs for now. And let's say that total revenue was 110,000. Okay? All right, well, we're just going to go back to the profit equation. We're going to put 23,000 in for profit equals total revenue, which is 110,000. I hope you're doing this with me. It's going to be good for you. Minus total cost. Okay. Now, this is going to be a little weird because what's going to happen is we've got a minus total cost here. In my opinion, if you struggle with algebra a little bit, you may want to do a couple extra steps here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add total cost to both sides. Add total cost. What that means I now have is total cost plus 23,000 is equal to 110,000. Why? Because over here I cross out the total cost, or the minus total cost. And now here I'm going to subtract 23,000 from both sides. Minus 23,000. And I get total cost is equal to 110,000, 110,000 minus 23,000. You may need a calculator for that, but I know that it's going to be 87,000. Okay? And so, total cost in this particular case is 87,000. So if you needed a formula to understand how to get total cost given total revenue and profit, then we could identify this equation. We could say total cost is equal to total revenue minus profit. Okay? And all three of these equations are all consistent with one another. Okay? That is the beginning, the profit equation, and now what we're going to do is we're going to break down the profit equation into parts. We're going to break total revenue apart, and we're going to break total cost apart. All right, so let's break down total revenue first. In order to understand total revenue, you have to understand its component parts, which are quantity and price. Now, let me give you some definitions for those. Quantity is the number of discrete output units a firm produces for selling. Now, when I say the word discrete, discrete means broken up into individual, distinct pieces. For example, human beings, people, are discrete individuals. Okay? We count them in ones. We don't say 1.5 people. We say 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Even if you meet somebody who is missing both of their legs and an arm, that is still a whole person. Even though their body is not whole, the person is whole. They have a name, they have maybe a social security number, they have, bills, they have a job. Okay, they are a person. So discrete means broken up into one unit at a time. Okay, counted as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, what is price? Well, price is the amount of money a firm expects to receive in exchange for 1 unit of output. So if I go to Walmart, and let's say that I want to buy a box of cereal, and the price on the box of cereal is $4 per box, right? So that is the amount of money, $4, okay, that Walmart expects to receive in exchange for 1 box of cereal. That is the price. Let's say that they sell 20 boxes of cereal at $4 each. Well, how much revenue did they earn? Well, you know how to do this one. It's real simple, right? $4 each. And then you just multiply that times the 20 boxes they sold. So we know that they earned $80 in revenue. This is a very simple equation. And so the way we understand it is that total revenue, by the way, quantity we represent with the letter Q, price we represent with the letter P. So total revenue, very simply, is equal to price times quantity. Okay? Price times quantity. All right, so the 2 component parts of total cost are variable cost and fixed costs. Now, these 2 concepts are closely related to the idea that we discussed previously, variable resources and fixed resources. But it's a little bit different. Okay, this time it's variable cost and fixed costs. Variable costs are costs that change with quantity. Fixed costs are costs that do not change as quantity changes. Okay? So variable cost is the amount of money a firm pays out for all resources whose quantity changes. As the firm's production quantity changes. Okay, here's what I mean by that. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Let's say that there's a carpenter who makes chairs. And let's say that in order to make one chair, he needs 2 long planks. And he cuts the 2 planks up in various ways, then puts all the pieces together that he cut to make one chair. So every one chair requires 2 planks of lumber. Okay? So let's say that he's going to sell 6 chairs. That is his production quantity. 6 chairs. Well, what quantity of resources does he need? What quantity of lumber does he need to make 6 chairs in his production? Well, because he needs 2 planks per chair, 6 chairs times 2 planks, that's 12 planks. So he needs 12 planks to make 6 chairs. But what if he changes it? What if tomorrow he makes 9 chairs? Well, now he needs 18 planks, right? The number of planks that he needs is changing as he changes his production quantity. As he changes how much he's going to produce, he's going to go to Home Depot and he's going to buy a different amount of wood every single time. And therefore, the planks that he buys are a variable cost, because the cost of buying that he spends on the planks changes as his production quantity changes. Okay? Another example would be, let's say, soda. Okay, so Coca-Cola makes soda, right? Well, they need sugar, right? And they also need water, among other things, to make Coca-Cola, right? Well, if they make more Coca-Cola one day in their manufacturing plant, if they increase the quantity that they're producing, then they're going to need more water and they're going to need more sugar. And so they're going to have to pay out more money for the more water and the more sugar. If they reduce their production quantity, then they're going to buy less sugar and they're going to buy less water. Okay? And so as their production goes up and down, how much money they pay out for water and sugar goes up and down. Okay? Those are variable costs. Now we're going to talk about fixed costs. Fixed costs are the amount of money a firm pays out for all resources whose quantity does not change. As the firm's production quantity changes. All right, so let's go back to the carpenter, right? Let's say that he has a truck that he drives around to go get supplies and bring them back. Well, granted, if he wants 5,000 planks, he's probably going to make a few truckloads. But really, he's one person, and as one person, he can only drive one truck. He only needs one truck, and so let's say he has a monthly payment for that truck. Well, if he makes more chairs, he's not going to go get 2 or 3 more trucks. He just has the one truck, so he just has to make the car payment on the truck. He has to make the insurance payment on the truck. Okay, maybe he rents out a warehouse monthly. Let's say that he has to pay out $800 a month for a warehouse that he uses where he keeps all of his tools and his inventory. Okay, well, if he makes more chairs, his rent doesn't go up. His rent doesn't go down when he makes fewer chairs. So his rent and his truck payment and his insurance payment, those are fixed costs. They are costs, it says money that they have to pay out for the resources where those resources, the quantity that they buy of those resources does not change as their production quantity changes. Those are fixed costs. And the bottom line is this, is that as the quantity changes in production, this number will change every single time, and this number right here will never change. And so now the relationship among these variables goes like this, that in order to identify the total cost of the business, it's very simple. You just take the variable cost that the business is paying out and add it to the fixed cost that they're paying out. And so total cost is equal to variable cost plus fixed cost. All right, so now that we have these three equations right here, we can actually put them together. We can now rewrite our profit equation, and we can say that profit is equal to total revenue, which is equal to price times quantity. So I'm just going to put P times Q minus, and total cost is equal to variable cost plus fixed cost. Now, because I have a minus here and I have addition here, I have to put them in parentheses. Variable cost plus fixed costs. And this now becomes our profit equation when we know the price, the quantity, the variable cost, and the fixed cost. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a few examples where we're going to sort of rearrange and mix up these variables and just get you used to doing these calculations. All right, so let's say that I'm told that the price that the firm sells for is $12, total revenue is $5,184, and what I'm being asked for is what is the quantity, okay? Well, in order to answer this question, we need to think to ourselves, how are price and total revenue and quantity related to each other? Which equation are we going to use? Well, we're going to use the total revenue equation, which is total revenue is equal to price times quantity. And so what we'll do is we'll just put in the numbers. Total revenue is $51.84 is equal to price, which is 12, times Q, right? And now, algebraically, we just divide by 12, cancel, divide by 12, and 51.84 divided by 12 is 432. So we can say, we know we were able to figure out that the quantity that this company is selling is 432 units. Now, is there a formula that we can use to find the quantity given total revenue and price? Yes, if we go back to just the original total revenue equation, we can look at this and solve for quantity, okay? So to solve for quantity, we just divide by P on both sides, okay? Cancel P, and quantity becomes, Q becomes total revenue divided by price. So this is a very common sort of equation, it's just something you need to understand in the back of your mind, that the quantity is always equal to the total revenue divided by the price. Now we can do the exact same thing. What if we didn't know the price? What if we knew the total revenue and we knew the quantity but we didn't know the price? Well, we can say total revenue is equal to price times quantity. Now we want to solve for P, so here instead of dividing by P, we're going to divide by Q on both sides, and then P becomes total revenue divided by quantity. Now this is a really important one also, because what this is we're going to talk about averages in just a little bit, and this is basically an average because we're dividing revenue by quantity, and that gives us price. That is the average revenue of the firm, okay? All right, so let's say we're trying to find quantity, and we're told that total revenue is $6,000 and that price is equal to $17. Okay, well, we know what to do here. We want to divide our total revenue by our price. So we'll do 6,000 divided by $17, and that gives us a decimal value. It gives us 352.9411765 in my calculator. Well, do you remember what I told you in our definition of quantity? That quantity is a discrete value. It gets counted one at a time. You know, we can't have 352.94 units. Now, we can have 352.94 million units, because with the million, we could then move our decimal point over and still have a discrete number, okay? I need to tell you what to do here. Whenever you come up with a number that's like this, what you're going to do is you're going to round to the nearest whole number. 352.94, we're going to say that this is a quantity of 353. Okay? And so, whenever you're doing problems that involve quantity, you need to first calculate your quantity, and then a lot of times you have to round your quantity and then do the additional calculation, okay? All right, so now let's look at a problem where we want to try and identify the fixed costs of a business, okay? Let's say we're told that the total cost is $25,000, variable cost is $17,000. What is the fixed cost? Okay, well, we know that total cost is equal to variable cost plus fixed cost. So here's what we'll do is we'll put the $25,000 in for total cost. We'll put in $17,000 for variable cost plus fixed cost. To solve for fixed cost now, we just subtract $17,000 from both sides. Cancel, and fixed cost becomes $25,000 minus $17,000, which is $8,000. Okay? And you can check this. We can just add fixed cost plus variable cost. $8,000 plus $17,000 is equal to $25,000. So another way that you can understand this is that fixed cost will always be equal to total cost minus variable cost. And it's the same way with variable cost. Variable cost will always be equal to total cost minus fixed costs. Okay, so you can add these two formulas if you want to into your list of all these formulas that we're going to be using. Okay, now what I want to do is a couple examples where we include quantity, price, fixed cost, variable cost, a whole bunch of stuff, and we'll try and figure out one or two variables. All right, so now here are all 7 of the variables that we have learned so far. So, we have 12 variables that we're going to learn in this lesson. We've already learned 7 of them. Okay, so there's only 5 more to go. So let's say we're given total revenue $10,000, we're given profit $2,000, we've got the price $5, and we've got variable cost $6,500, and we want to try and identify quantity, fixed cost, and total cost. Okay, the first thing I'm thinking is we can identify the total cost because we have total revenue and profit. We know that total cost is equal to total revenue minus profit because profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost, right? So we can just do 10,000 minus 2,000. 10,000 minus 2,000 is 8,000, so total cost must be 8,000. And we can check that backwards by taking, we know that profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost, and 10,000 minus 8,000 is indeed 2,000. So we've got total cost. Now we want to identify, let's say we go for quantity, okay? We know that quantity is related to total revenue and price. We know that total revenue is equal to price times quantity, which means that quantity is equal to total revenue divided by price. So we're going to do 10,000 divided by 5, and 10,000 divided by 5, just in case you're not sure, is 2,000, but you may need a calculator anyways. Divided by 5 is 2,000. And so we know the quantity production is going to be 2,000 units. And now the last thing we need is fixed cost. And so we know that total cost is equal to variable cost plus fixed cost. So that means all we have to do is subtract the variable cost from the total cost, and whatever's left over, that's our fixed cost. And 8,000 minus 6,500 is 1,500. Okay? 1,500. And now we got our fixed cost. And we can check it by adding fixed cost plus variable cost. 1,500 plus 6,500 is indeed 8,000. Okay, and you'll have lots of opportunities to practice this in the practice quiz. And there'll be plenty of situations where you start off, maybe instead of starting off with these 4, maybe you'll start off with this one and this one and this one or something like that. And you just sort of have to do a lot of algebra using the formulas to try and get at it, try and get at all the answers. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over to that table that we made with the 9 rows, and we are going to do the first 3 rows of that table for the first 7 variables across the top. All right, folks, so we're going to do this row, and this row, and we're only going to focus on the variables over to here. We're going to ignore these over here for the first 3 rows, okay? So here we want to identify the profit, the fixed costs, and the quantity. Now you're going to need a calculator to be able to do this. So I'm going to get the calculator on my cell phone ready. And so let's go ahead and the easiest one here is probably to get the profit. We know that profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. So we're going to do 2130, that's this one, 2130, minus total cost 1850, and that gives us 280. So we know that the profit is going to be 280. All right. Now that we know that, let's go ahead and see if we can identify our fixed costs. That's the next one over here. We know that total cost is equal to variable cost plus fixed cost. So to get fixed costs, all we have to do is subtract variable costs away from total costs. So 1850 minus 1350, well, that's an easy one. 1850 minus 1350, that's 500. Okay. And now that we know the fixed cost, the only thing we have left for the first row is to get quantity. Now remember that quantity and price are related to total revenue. We have price, we have total revenue, we just need quantity. And we know that price times quantity is equal to total revenue. So to start, if we're starting with total revenue and price, we can divide total revenue by price. That will give us quantity. So I'm going to do 2130 divided by the price of 53.25, and that gives me a quantity of 40. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a 40 in here, and so now we have the first row complete. Now, I want to briefly talk about quantity and fixed costs before we move on to the next line, because these two are going to make things very easy. When we do one of these tables and we're doing consecutive rows, this quantity, if this row is quantity of 40, the very next row, since all of these numbers are related to each other, the next row up is going to be 41. So we know that the quantity of the next row will be 41, and the quantity of the next row after that will be 42. So that was pretty easy. Okay, and then for fixed costs, we know that fixed costs are fixed, and therefore fixed costs do not change. Therefore, if this company has fixed costs of 500, when quantity is 40, then they are also going to have fixed costs of 500 when they have a quantity of 41. And so what we said about fixed costs is that they don't change as quantity changes. Therefore, we're going to go all the way down here and 500. So this column right here is going to be 500 all the way down, but we're only doing the first three rows. So now we have a few more things to get. Let's go to the next row here, and we want to identify the price. Now, in order to identify the price, we would need the quantity and the total revenue. Well, we don't have the total revenue. The total revenue, we're going to have to determine that some other way. And we don't have price, so we can't do price times quantity is equal to total revenue. So let's leave total revenue until later. Let's try total cost. Do we have enough for total cost? Well, we know that total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost, and we have both of those. So all we have to do with these two numbers is add them together, because total cost is variable cost plus fixed cost. So 1,400 plus 500, that's 1,400 and 1,900. Okay, so 1,050. Sorry about that. My brain just got kind of stuck. Okay, so we add this plus no, it's not. It's 1,900. Sorry about that, folks. All right, 1,900. And so now that we have total costs, we also have profit, so we can find total revenue. Do you remember that total revenue minus total cost is equal to profit? But if we go backwards, we know that total revenue is split between total cost and profit, so all we have to do is add these two together. Total revenue is equal to total cost plus profit. So if we add 1,900 and 281.20, so we get 1,900 plus 281 and 20, and we get 2,181 and 20 cents. Okay, there we go. So we've got total revenue, and now we just have to identify price. Now we can get price because we have total revenue and we have quantity. Price is equal to total revenue divided by quantity, and so let's go ahead and do that. That's 2181.20. It's already in my calculator, divided by the quantity of 41, and that gives me $53.20. So I'm going to go 53.2, and that gives me the price. Now I only have the third row here. I got to get the price, the variable cost, and the total cost. So I can get the price first because the price is going to be equal to total revenue divided by quantity, but also notice I can get the total cost because I have total revenue and I have profit. Let's do total cost over here first. We know that total revenue minus total cost is equal to profit. But we also learned that we can get total cost if we do total revenue minus profit, right? And so we're going to do this number, 2232.30 minus the profit of 282 and 10, and that gives us 1,950.20. So 1950 and 20 cents. That gives us total cost. Now that we know total cost, we can get variable cost because total cost is variable cost plus fixed cost. These two numbers should add up to 1950 and 20. So all we have to do is subtract fixed cost from total cost, and that'll give us variable cost. So we're going to do 1950 and 20 minus 500, and that gives us 1450 and 20. And that's going to be our variable cost. And now the last thing we have to identify is price. And like we said, price and quantity are related to total revenue. So all we have to do is divide total revenue, 22, 32, and 30, and divide that by the quantity of 42, and that gives us 53, 15. 53 and 15. There we go. And we now have the first 3 rows done for our 7 variables.